Hey guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. So today, as you can tell by the title, it's going to be my March wrap-up. I read 15 books in the month of March, so let's go ahead and jump into my stats. So I do my stats on Storygraph because I stopped using Goodreads. So I read 4,514 pages this month. That's a lot of pages. I haven't been tracking the amount of pages that I've been reading for that long, but it just sounds like so many pages. So proud of myself for reading 15 books and that many pages. So here you can see the moods that I read this month. As always, we have dark, mysterious, emotional, and tense and adventurous. Those are the moods that I tend to read from, and it was pretty typical this month yet again. I tend to read mostly fast-paced books, so again, this one does not surprise me in the slightest, but I did read a few slow and medium-paced books this month as well. This might be the first month this year that I actually broke out of the between 300 and 499 pages zone. I read one book that was more than 500 pages, and I read two books that were under 300. And this month I actually did read a nonfiction book, just one. The rest of them, here is the genre breakdown. We have mostly thrillers, mysteries, and contemporaries as always, with some sci-fi, romance, and poetry thrown in there as well. Finally, here is the breakdown of my star ratings. My average rating this month was a 4 stars. I had a really great reading month overall, as you can probably tell. 4 stars is a really high average rating for me. So this month I had 2 2-star books, 1 2.5 star, 1 3.5 star, 4 4 stars, 2 4.5 stars, and I actually had 5 5-star books this month, which is incredible. So just really quickly before I get into the synopses and my thoughts on all of these books, I have a few more stats that Storygraph doesn't generate for me, but that I like to tell you guys. So for the age breakdown, I read 3 YA books and the rest of the 12 were all adult. As for the authors, I read from 2 male authors and 13 female authors, and 3 of those female authors were authors of color. And as for the way that I read these books, I consumed 7 audiobooks, read 7 physically, and then did 1 ebook as well. So that is it for the stats, and let's go ahead and get into the books that I read this month. I'm gonna go ahead and start with my lowest rated books and work my way up to those 5 amazing 5-star books. The first 2-star book I read this month I don't think is going to be a surprise for anyone, and that is The Project by Courtney Summers. I really did not enjoy this book pretty much at all. I don't understand why it's getting such high praise. I feel like the people who are giving this book such high praise are not well versed in the thriller genre or not well versed in adult thrillers, because I see a lot of people saying that this book is so dark and twisted, and it wasn't for me. I don't think it's very easy to make a book about cults boring. It actually sounds pretty difficult to make a book about cults boring. Cults in themselves are not boring. They're really interesting and they are dark and twisted and creepy. But the only thing that I really thoroughly enjoyed in this book was the main evil character, the cult leader. He was the only character that I felt really intrigued by, because the main 2 perspectives that we were following were pretty bland, average YA girl characters, and I didn't feel connected to them at all. I was mostly bored during the whole thing, waiting for action to start picking up, and it never did. The big twist that was supposed to be like the shocker of the entire book, I ended up guessing around chapter 2, so needless to say, I did not enjoy much about this book, and I don't really recommend it unless you are a beginner for the thriller genre, or you're a YA reader wanting to expand your reading taste and maybe get into something a little darker than what you typically read, like fantasy or sci-fi. If you're wanting to expand outside of that, go a little bit darker, this might be something that you'll be interested in. It just didn't have the wow factor for me. I read so many thrillers and it didn't do it for me. It didn't measure up to the super graphic and hard-hitting adult thrillers that I usually read. But if you do want to read this book, I will let you know a short synopsis. It's basically about our main character, Lo, and she is trying to find out what happened to her sister, B, after she kind of got indoctrinated into this cult. She wants to do this big expose on the project and find out if her sister's okay and what happened to her. There's also a murder that has been associated with this cult, so she wants to expose that. Yeah, sounds like a really fun and interesting premise, but it did not end up panning out for me. Also, another big storyline in this book was the fact that she worked at a magazine, our main character, so she kind of had the means to expose this cult. It's not like she was just out here screaming on Twitter about it, like she actually had the means to do a big expose on this cult, and there was kind of a subplot around them not taking her seriously at the magazine and feminism in the workplace, but it wasn't very nuanced commentary, and I thought it kind of took away from the overall cult storyline. I don't think it needed it. If you're going to have some feminist commentary, please make it nuanced and needed instead of just thrown in there to seem like you're pandering to a female audience. Oops, I said it. Sorry. And the other 2-star book I ended up reading this month was, surprise, surprise, another YA mystery thriller. Why do I keep doing it to myself? Why do I keep reading them? They get so hyped and I just have to read them. But this one was The Safest Lies by Megan Miranda, and I ended up only reading this so I could read Megan Miranda's entire backlist and make a full video ranking every single book Megan Miranda has ever written. So if you want to check that video out, I will link it here and below and everywhere. I have a whole series where I'm ranking thriller authors' entire backlist, so make sure to check that out if you haven't. And this one was definitely down at the bottom of the ranking of all the Megan Miranda books that I read. It honestly really bummed me out because the first few chapters of this book were amazing. It follows this girl who has a very overprotective mother, and we're trying to figure out why she's raising her this way. It seems like her mother is almost agoraphobic. She never leaves the house. They get all their groceries delivered. She's super strict about her daughter leaving or having social media, just being out in the world in general. And we're led to believe that her mother went through some type of traumatic event and that it may be following her. So when all these crazy things start happening to the daughter, the main perspective that we're following, it does get really intense, and those first few chapters were super heart pumping and great, really thrilling. Some of the best chapters I've read of a mystery thriller. And then because the energy was so high up here, the rest of the book kind of just fell flat. It didn't reach that super high peak of thrills and like edge of your seat twists at the end, because the beginning was really that part of it for me, and it just fell flat. I ended up zoning out while I was listening to this audiobook really a lot towards the end because it just wasn't capturing my attention like the beginning did. Also, do we really need romance in every single YA mystery thriller? Can we please not? Thank you. Now moving on to the 2.5-star book I read this month. That is The Minders by John Mars, and this was a huge, huge disappointment for me. I absolutely love The One and the Passengers by John Mars, and The Minders is set in that same sci-fi, a minute into the future universe, if you will. So I was really excited about it, but it ended up falling really flat for me. It also spoils The One and the Passengers within the first 30 pages. So please do not read this book if you haven't read The One and the Passengers. Don't ruin those books for yourself because they're actually really good, and this is a piece of trash, so you really don't need to read it. Please don't ruin it for yourself, please. Anyway, this book is about these 5 people called minders who are basically keeping government secrets. The government is figuring out, oh, this is in the UK, by the way, so when I refer to the government, I'm meaning like the UK government, parliament, I don't know if that was, is that what it's called? I don't know. I don't live there. I guess the prime minister and all of these people in the UK government found out that their secrets were being leaked, and the only way to keep them safe would be to inject them into people's brains because people cannot be hacked. So they give all of the government conspiracies and secrets to 5 normal everyday people who take a quiz online. Literally insane. The concept was bad from the word go. And you're following these 5 people as they try to keep government secrets, but then do they end up doing that? Absolutely not. It all falls apart. I was super bored during this book. I kept zoning out and it just wasn't keeping my attention like other John Marrs books, and that's really uncharacteristic of his writing for me. Also, it's been brought to my attention multiple times that John Marrs consistently includes plot lines about women struggling with fertility in every single one of his books, and yeah, that showed up here, and that is just really weird. I don't know why he keeps bringing that up. I don't know if he's maybe struggled with that in his own life, with a partner, with a sister, with a mother. I don't know if that's like something close to him that he feels like he wants to write about, but it just feels odd that a man consistently is bringing up women's fertility issues. I don't know, very odd. Anyway, that was just one of the issues that I had with this book. The plot really did not make sense. There are so many plot holes. There was nobody to root for. I kept getting the perspectives mixed up. The names of the characters were even like, what the hell? Like, one of the characters' names is Flick. One of them is Bruno. I'm sorry, that is the name of a pit bull puppy. That is not a human being. So if you want to hear more of mine and Gabby Reed's and Katie Colson's thoughts on this book, I will link Gabby's live show. I was all over those chats, in the chat, in the comments, whatever, and they had some really great thoughts, and if you want a more in-depth look at the minders, I will link that. Next, moving on to the 3.5-star book that I read this month. It is Violet Bent Backwards Over the Grass by Lana Del Rey. This is Lana Del Rey's poetry collection that is also a sort of memoir for a few times in her life. It's just poetry about her experiences, her trauma, how she writes her songs, what her lyrics mean, things like that. And I really enjoyed it, but I don't think this poetry was anything special. I think if this was not written by Lana Del Rey, I wouldn't be as intrigued. I did go through and highlight a few very meaningful and like poignant passages, but I think if anyone besides Lana wrote this book, I don't know if I would care that much. Like, it's very lyrical, musical poetry, which I really enjoyed reading, but I just really liked getting to know a little bit about Lana's life and her experiences, so that's why I really enjoyed this one. It also has a lot of her like original photography in here, which was cool. Like, it's a really beautiful book, but again, if it was written by anyone else, I don't know how intrigued I would be. It's just because I'm a big fan of her writing and her music that I really like this book, but I think if you're not a Lana fan, you can skip it. You'll be fine with Rupi Kaur. Now let's go ahead and get into the 4 4-star books I read this month. First, I have The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. I actually did a full dedicated reading vlog for this book, so if you want to hear my super in-depth thoughts about it, I will link the reading vlog above, below, and everywhere. Basically, there was a viral TikTok that went around that totally convinced me to pick up this book, and I'm super glad that I ended up doing that. I think the ending was a little cheap, but again, if you want to hear full thoughts, watch the vlog. The next 4-star book that I read this month was Something in the Water by Catherine Stedman. I actually had a lot of people, when I mentioned this in my March TBR, tell me that I wasn't going to like this book.
y'all were wrong.
I don't even know how else to put it. I loved this book. It was definitely not a 5-star read, but it was such a fun thriller. First of all, it follows this rich bougie couple as they go on their honeymoon to Bora Bora. And if you know me, you know that I love 2 things. Reading about rich bougie lives and people, love it, and suburban people drama. Literally those 2 things, chef's kiss. I will love any book about those things, and those were heavily featured in this book. However, the first probably 4th, maybe leaning on a 3rd of the book was pretty boring. It really was drawn out, just talking about these people's mundane suburban lives and how rich and wonderful their lives were, and the fact that there were secrets bubbling under the surface. But at that like 20 to 30% mark, when the crux of the story happens, basically the inciting incident for the rest of the book is that this couple honeymooning in Bora Bora is just out on their beautiful little boat in the beautiful ocean, and something bumps up against the side of their boat, and it's this bag full of illegal paraphernalia, and they have to figure out what to do from there. Do they keep it? Do they turn it in? What do you do? And it's very much a moral dilemma. It got my heart pumping. I was like looking over my shoulder, and I read this out of the pool in my apartment where I was completely 100% safe, locked in. Well, I don't know, you never know as a young woman in an apartment complex, but I felt pretty safe, and this really got my heart pumping. It was super thrilling, super interesting just to think about the moral dilemma and like what you would do in that situation. I thought it was absolutely crazy, especially the ending. Oh my god, that I did not see that twist coming. It was insane. It wasn't a 5-star book because the beginning did drag a little bit, but if you're looking for a super fun poolside read, I highly recommend this book. The next book that I rated 4 stars this month was Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. Tiffany D. Jackson is becoming one of my very favorite YA thriller authors. I feel like Holly Jackson and Tiffany D. Jackson,
The Jacksons, if you will,
have cornered the market on YA thrillers. If you're going to pick up a YA thriller, don't bother doing it unless it's by one of those 2 authors because those are the only thrillers I feel that match up with the level of not necessarily graphicness, but like the disturbing nature and heart-pumping, thrilling feeling and vibe of my adult thrillers. So Monday's Not Coming follows our main character, Claudia. She is a young African-American girl just trying to live it up. She's going into middle school. She's trying to rock it out and just live life with her best friend, Monday. And she shows up for school on the first day, and Monday is not there. So she's really intimidated to start middle school alone without her like sidekick and BFF. That just is sad and honestly thrilling in its own sense. Just like imagining taking on the first day of middle school alone, that is absolutely terrifying. But it seems like nobody else really cares that Monday is missing. People think that she might have run away, she might have killed herself, but Claudia thinks that something more sinister actually happened to Monday, and it's just crazy how none of the adults seem to care. None of the teachers, the social workers, parents, nobody seems to think anything is super suspicious. Even her own parents keep telling her just stay out of that family's business. That's their stuff that goes on behind closed doors, and we don't need to deal with it. But Claudia is the one person who keeps searching for her best friend, and this story gripped me from the first page. I was listening to this on audio and I did not stop until I hit the last page. It was that good, and the last probably 25% was so fast-paced, so dark. I did not see it going in that direction at all, but it was so well done. I think this is definitely one of the very best YA thrillers I have read, but because the voice was a little bit younger than like a high school voice like in Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson or like Pip in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, I didn't connect with our main character as much. I sympathized with her, but I really couldn't put myself in her shoes. So it was difficult to connect with that main character, which is why I gave it a 4 instead of a 5-star. But if you're looking for a good YA mystery, this one will not let you down. And the last 4-star book I ended up reading in March was Shipped by Andy Hockman. This is a super cute contemporary romance. It's hate to love between two co-workers at a cruise company who are applying for the same promotion. And they end up going on this cruise together because they have to put together a marketing campaign around this cruise to the Galapagos to compete for this marketing promotion. And they end up falling in love while they're on this cruise together, even though they don't like each other and they're competing for the same job. And it's adorable. It's 4 stars. It was not anything particularly groundbreaking, but if you're looking for a book that does have actually effective commentary on feminism in the workplace, Shipped does it a hell of a lot better than fucking The Project. That's trash compared to this. This was very nuanced and I really enjoyed that part of the book. I also really liked the imagery, and I read this book for a very special reading vlog. I read Gabby Reed's favorite books, or not necessarily like top favorite books because I've already read all of those, but I read a few books that Gabby had highly recommended over the past few months, and Shipped happened to be one of those, so I will link that reading vlog everywhere. Go check it out. It was a really fun time to make, and I think it turned out really good, so go watch it for more in-depth thoughts on that book and a couple others that I'm about to tell you about. So the 2 4.5 rated books that I read this month were also for that Gabby Reed's reading vlog. I read The Nesting by C.J. Cook, which is a thriller / horror book with some really great mental health commentary about an architect who is building this wonderful, beautiful dream home.
Record scratch.
Except it's on the site where his wife died, and her soul, ? Is haunting ? The site and the children that are still there, his kids, and he hires a nanny to watch these creepy kids in this haunted house, and the nanny is super freaked out. And not only do we get the nanny's perspective in current day, we get the wife, the dead wife's perspective from the past. So we're kind of trying to put the pieces together as we read. Rated it a 4.5 stars. If you want full thoughts, watch that vlog. Same thing with Playing Nice by J.P. Delaney. This is a legal thriller about 2 kids who were switched at birth, but the parents actually did not find out until the kids are about 2 years old. So it's another super uncomfortable, super tense and suspenseful moral dilemma, creepy, uncomfortable kind of thriller. It was awesome, and the ending really was just like knocked my socks off. So if you want full thoughts on that, again, watch the vlog. And I'll just go ahead and talk about the 4th book that I read for that video. It was my first 5-star read of the month, and that was The Dream Daughter by Diane Chamberlain. This is a historical fiction, magical realism kind of story about a woman in the 60s who she loses her husband in the Vietnam War, and all she has left of him is the child that she is carrying. She's pregnant with his child. So it's really important to her that this child survives. It's the last piece that she has of her husband. She ends up finding out that it has a life-threatening heart condition, and her brother-in-law tells her that he is from the future and he's a time traveler, and he can actually send her to 2001 when they actually have the resources to do this surgery. And then after she does the surgery to save her baby's life, she can come back to the 60s, have the baby, and everyone can live hunky-dory. Yeah, it's fucking insane, and it was an amazing 5-star emotional journey. So again, for full thoughts and to watch me cry about that book, watch the vlog. Now let's get into the final 4 5-star books that I read in March. One of the books that I rated 5 stars this month was actually the teeniest, tiniest little novella, and that is The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. And oh my god, Reading this just reminded me how phenomenal Gillian Flynn's writing is. She is blessed. This woman has a gift for writing thriller and horror books with this dry comedic style. You can't replicate it. You cannot find it anywhere else. Gillian, when you gonna write another book for us, please? Because I haven't read one of her books since I read Dark Places, I think my freshman year of high school. So that was like,
Oh my god, that was like almost 10 years ago.
no, yeah, okay. Excuse my existential crisis. I was blown away by this book, and it just reminded me how much I freaking love Gillian Flynn. If you like ghost stories and creepy, weird thrillers, you will absolutely love this little girl. I think she's what, not even 100 pages. Yeah, this is like 70 pages, and I read it in a morning, and it was a wonderful morning. It follows this girl who's basically a sex worker, and she works out of the back of a psychic shop. She gives hand jobs. That's all she does. And she ends up getting like arthritis or like carpal tunnel in her hands from her profession. And so she ends up moving to the front of the psychic shop and selling herself as a psychic. And she ends up helping this suburban woman with a problem that needs psychic solutions, and things kind of devolve from there. The ending is insane. The whole thing really is insane. It's hilarious, and it grips you from the first sentence. I highly, highly recommend this book. Highly recommend all of Gillian Flynn's work, and a Gillian Flynn full backlist ranking will be coming soon. Yet another book I rated 5 stars this month was Actor Age Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. This was a highly, highly anticipated book for me. It was definitely my most anticipated romance of 2021, and so I'm very happy to report that I gave it 5 stars, and I super, super loved this book. It follows Eve, the youngest of the Brown sisters. This is the last romance book in Talia Hibbert's Brown Sisters trilogy, which just makes me want to cry. Can we add another sister? A cousin maybe? Because I'm not done with these books. The writing style is just chef's kiss amazing. Perfect balance of cutesy, perfect romance scenes and very spicy smut scenes. I absolutely love this Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert. This book follows Eve, who is kind of all over the place. She can't figure out what she wants to do for her life and for her career. So her parents end up cutting her off and basically telling her to figure it out. So she ends up stumbling into this bed and breakfast where the owner is a little bit frazzled by Eve's demeanor and her all over the place attitude, because he is actually autistic and he cannot handle that. He needs structure. He's very, very structured in the way that he goes about doing things. So seeing Eve, who's just this crazy hurricane of bright colors and sometimes disregard for other people is very jarring for him. They end up not really getting along at first, but of course they end up falling in love, and it is such a sweet story. There's a lot of great autistic rep in here. Although this isn't an Own Voices novel, it gives 2 really different perspectives on autism, and it also speaks to seeking a diagnosis of autism as an adult, which I actually have done for a few of my clients. If you don't know, I'm a therapist, so that really touched me as well, that whole storyline. And yeah, I absolutely loved everything about this book. Some of the scenes, the imagery was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. It was literally like watching a Disney movie, like a fairy tale princess moment. I don't know, it was just perfect, and I already want to reread it. So needless to say, I highly recommend it. Next, I gave 5 stars to Two Truths and a Lie by Meg Mitchell-Moore. This is one of the most Hailey books I have ever read and one of my very top all-time favorites. Like, yes, all these other books that I read and rated 5 stars this month are favorites, but this is like an all-time perfect book for me. And I haven't heard anyone else talk about this, so I'm just really shook why nobody's reading this. It is a suburban mystery thriller, which everybody knows that's my favorite kind of book to read, so I was hyped for it already. But we actually end up following multiple perspectives from this little seaside Massachusetts town, so everyone's super hoity-toity. It's like old money, and this lady named Sherry and her daughter Katie move into town, and they're the newcomers. The mom squad and the little girly group, the clique at the middle school, do not want to accept the newcomers, but they end up having a very intriguing and mysterious past and lots of secrets. So there's a little bit of drama involved, and maybe the high society elite people in the town want to let them in just so they can know about the tea. So we are following Rebecca, who is kind of like the figurehead of all the bougie moms in town. We're also following Sherry, who is the newcomer, and we're following Rebecca's oldest daughter, Alexa, who is just graduated from high school. It's her last summer before she goes away to college, and she's a secret YouTuber. She has a secret YouTube channel, so I really loved that aspect of it too. Also, Alexa's love interest is named Cam, and if y'all don't know, my boyfriend's name is Cam, and he's just the sweetest character ever. He's probably my favorite love interest in any book, and I think it's because he just reminds me of my own boyfriend in real life. They quite literally have the same name, but I thought it was absolutely adorable, their love story, and this whole mystery just went in a direction that I was not expecting whatsoever. The twists were insane and unpredictable. The last probably 30 pages were a little cheesy, a little Hallmarky, maybe didn't need to go so far, you know, into the kitschy beach read type of tropes, but I didn't even care because I loved it so much. I was just so in it. I cried multiple times while reading it. I was super attached to every single character, and I just totally was in it. From page 1, I was in it. I read it in a day because I could not put it down. It was addicting and amazing, and if you like bougie people drama, especially on like a seaside town in the summer, this is such a vibe. Please read it. And finally, the very last book I have to talk to you guys about is Take It Back by Kia Abdullah. This is a crazy, super dark, super twisted thriller. I haven't heard many people talk about this one as well, but if you like books like The Night Swim or, oh God, what's that one book? Confessions, you will love Take It Back. It is super dark, and there are a lot of trigger warnings though, so make sure you look those up before you get into this book. This book takes place in the UK, and we follow our main character, who was a super high profile defense attorney, but ends up switching out of that profession and working in victims advocacy, specifically for victims of sexual assault. So one day this young girl comes into her office seeking help for pressing charges for her sexual assault. She is this really small, meek, and actually disfigured young girl. Like, her face is physically deformed. So she goes into our main character's office and tells her the very graphic, in detail story of her being raped by 4 students at her school. And our main character is Muslim, and the 4 boys who raped this girl allegedly are Muslim as well. So it's a very big scandal for her community, for her, a Muslim woman, to be coming out against these 4 Muslim boys who are already facing so much discrimination because she's just taking the side of the white girl. And it's about how her career is unfolding, about public opinion, about what they think about a deformed girl claiming that she was raped, because there are those disgusting opinions of people saying, you know, who would ever rape someone who doesn't look pretty, who looks ugly like that? So it gets into a lot of that and a lot of science that says, you know, people don't rape because they think a girl's pretty. It's about power. And the twists at the end of this book are insane. Not even just at the end, the twists throughout the book are insane. So much is going on. We have social commentary, we have feminist commentary, we have racial commentary, we have commentary all about the UK and their justice system. Everything in this book will keep you on the edge of your seat. It was a crazy, crazy ride. It makes you so mad and so sad at multiple points in this book, but at the same time, you're also empathizing with every single character. This book was masterfully done, and if you can handle reading this book and you're at a point in your life where this kind of subject material would not be triggering to you, I highly, highly recommend picking it up. It is really, really powerful. And you guys know those are my favorite kind of thrillers, the ones that do have those thrills and those twists and keep you engaged, but also have something to say. I think it's really important that thrillers are super, super fun, but they also have an important message, because that's what authors should do, right? Use their platform for good. So that is the last book I have to talk to you guys about. And I know this was a super long video, but thank you for sticking with me if you made it to the end. Let me know if you're going to pick up any of these books or not pick up any of these books based on what I shared with you today in this wrap up. And don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe to my channel to keep up with all of the videos that I'll be posting throughout this month. I have some gems that I'm about to post for you guys, so definitely subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.